we've got an amazing guest today with us, Julie Chavez Rodriguez, the campaign manager for the incredible Harris-Walz campaign. Julie, welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much, Simon and Tara, for having me.
Listen, just basic question, right? You've been in this thing from the beginning. What a remarkable journey this has been. Things are, after the convention, the debate. I mean, it's been a remarkable run for all of you. Give us a sense of how you think things are going 40 days out. How does it feel? What are you looking forward to? Give us an update.
Yeah, well, 40 days out, one, it's great to be here with you all and to just first thank folks. I know we've seen a tremendous amount of energy, support, enthusiasm, over the last several weeks. And for us, that is really what we needed, right? The momentum going into this final 40-day stretch. But look, we're taking nothing for granted. We know and have always known that this is going to be a really close election, that we needed to have a strong organization in all of our battleground states to be able to reach the voters, the coalition that we know we need to reach right now. So we've been able to fortunately raise the resources to invest in our, 7 battleground states to make sure we are, deeply ingrained with strong offices and organizers on the ground, continuing to scale up our volunteer activities, our Canvas program, our phone banks, just really, turning on the entire apparatus that you two know very well will make the difference in close elections. And, we know this is going to be won or lost on the margins in these states. And that's where organization matters. But the enthusiasm has been great. It's been electrifying. It's been energizing. It's been, if I can steal your term, hopium, that I think folks were really, I think, needing to be able to go into, what has been, I think, a really exhausting time for many folks as they had to deal with the Trump administration initially and so much energy and organizing and effort going into making sure that, everyone was doing what we could to protect the communities that so many of us were a part of or had been, fighting for so long. Then to, obviously the challenges of a pandemic and what that experience, meant for so many of us, then kind of back into another election. And so we're excited for the energy, the enthusiasm, this sort of spring of action, as we go into these final 40 days stretch. And I couldn't be more proud of our team and the campaign that we've built to date. But now is when it all matters.
Really does. It's getting so close, which is exciting and also really nerve-wracking after such a long slog. And I want to talk about kind of that sort of pivot. We talk a lot at Courier about turning vibes into votes, right? This is the time to do it. People are actually voting in some states across the country, which is so exciting. And that's going to keep happening over the next few weeks as early vote starts in a lot of states. And this is also where I feel like you start to really sort of drill down into very specific communities where there might be vulnerabilities or soft spots, et cetera, and do a lot more targeted organizing and communication. It happens the whole campaign, of course, but I'm really curious about how the campaign is working to translate really good vibes into votes among communities like Latino communities in states that are so critical like Nevada and Arizona and parts of Pennsylvania and other states, as well as young people, right, that are going to play an outsized role in this election, since for the first time really in our history, people between the ages of 18 to 40 make up the largest swath of the electorate, which is really exciting. And also we know that they need a lot more nudging sometimes, since it isn't something of habit to vote yet necessarily. So would love to just kind of hear how the campaign is focusing on very different constituencies and the ways that they're reaching out to them.
Yeah, well, one I'd say from turning, vibes into votes. I love that expression and phrase. But, early on, even in August, right, after we did have the vice president come to the top of the ticket, we, announced Governor Walz. We were in the middle of August, one of the hardest times to organize, period, let alone sort of in an election cycle, right? And we were able to, have tremendous rallies across all of our battleground states. And so just in that effort, fortunately, we had the organization to turn, so many of those folks, not just showing up for rallies, but then into shifts right away, and began, really that more aggressive volunteer recruitment process that has just continued to scale and continued to build at every turn. I think we quickly went from an organization that was, trying to kind of, find new ways of bringing people in, to then figuring out how does the net that we've, built actually capture, the kind of energy and sort of mobilization that we're seeing. So it has gone into a lot of the volunteer kind of organization that we've been building. But to your point, we have some, incredible constituency programs that we've been using to just make sure that, no matter who you are, no matter how you identify, you can really find a place for, ways in which you want to organize with our campaign. And that's both on the ground in person, through all of our field offices in our battleground states. And we have, I think it's 377 the last time I checked. I'm an organizer's organizer, so I don't end in zeros. But, just making sure that our field offices are in communities too, that, for the voters that we needed to reach. Maryvale was one of the first field offices we opened in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's in the heart of the Latino community. It had never seen a presidential, office so proximate to the voters and the communities and the neighborhoods that we needed to reach. The same with Philadelphia, and making sure, again, we had such, important presence early on. And we've, helped to make sure that that has translated into then the programming we're doing, the organizers we're hiring, who we're, sending to the doors, who we're recruiting for phone banks, and making sure that those are key entree points into the campaign, but not, in a way that folks feel sort of exclusive, or that, that they can't sort of really, find their own connection. And so I've been really proud with, we've called it our blended organizing model that we've brought in, because it really is trying to tap into the best of relational, digital, and then just, straight up, kind of grassroots organizing, which is a lot of the tradition that I was raised on, in a way that really is trying to meet voters where they are. Like you said, we're already seeing voters start to vote. So we have, no longer have to build for this, one day blitz, where we try to get as many folks, as many volunteers out there talking to as many voters. But we have such a great opportunity to be able to engage folks through early vote windows, and through early vote in person, vote by mail for some of our states, because it's become, complicated in some states that we're really cognizant of. But, all of this is really giving us an incredible opportunity to make sure that we are bringing as many folks out as possible, because it is going to be, again, a campaign that is won or lost on the margins, and turnout will matter incredibly. And this is when field and strong field programs will make a difference, on whether we win or lose.
Julie, one of the things we talk about in this show, it's called Closing Strong. And because the premise is this is a close election, but we need to close strong, and to look at ways how best to close strong, so that we can help all of you win this important election. I'm just wondering, we've got, as you were saying, we've outraised them. We have more volunteers than they do. We have an enthusiasm gap now, where our side is more enthusiastic. We have bigger crowd sizes, right, than the other side, which is, we all know how important that is. How are you thinking about the close now? I mean, you've laid out some of it, but is the vice president going to be going into all 7 battleground states every week? Are you what are you going to be doing with the vice president? I mean, just talk a little bit about your thoughts about how we close strong, and really and push this vote from where it is today to a place where we win.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to get ahead of any travel announcements, of course,
Yeah.
but, just in terms of, I think, key moments that we have between now and Election Day, we have, of course, the vice presidential debate that's coming up on October 1st, which will be another important opportunity to be able to really show voters the choice that's in front of them, right? We have, the Vice President Harris and Governor Walz, who continue to really be focused on the future, continue to lay out real plans, actual plans, not concepts of plans, for lowering costs for families, for addressing the issues that we know voters care most about, versus, Trump and Vance, who, one, continue to really focus on hate and division in so many ways, but also, the Project 2025 that their allies have laid out is an extremely risky proposition for voters when you look at, the kind of control that and unprecedented power that it would give to a president, take reproductive rights as one example, laying out that they would even monitor pregnancies and women in that way. I can't even imagine how you do that actually, but what it would life would be like in that kind of instance, eliminating the Department of Education. So we're going to make sure that, voters continue to see the choice, and that is a very clear proposition for them as we go into this final stretch. We'll of course have, all of our principals out in the battleground states. I know Governor Walz and Mrs. Walz continue to cover so much real literal territory for the campaign as they're out in different parts of our battleground states. I was really impressed with Mrs. Walz. I had a chance to do an Educators for Harris-Walz event with her in Phoenix, Arizona, I think just last week. And from there, she was then, driving to Kingman, Arizona, which is, not a super Democratic friendly county or area of the state. She had over 115 people, turn out for her event. Then from there, driving to Flagstaff for another event. Then from there on to Vegas. So just really, we are making sure, again, we're not taking anything for granted, that we're getting into the red counties within our states, even if that means knowing that we're likely not going to win, many of these counties, but we will, hopefully drive up, our vote share, drive down Trump's margins. And we know in states like Nevada and Georgia, in North Carolina, especially in our rural areas and rural counties, that's what makes the real difference in an election. So you'll see, more of that, of course, continuing to get our surrogates out. We have been really fortunate that, as a party, folks have been so united and so ready to get out there and willing to be surrogates, and again do day-long trips where we have them up and down, all of the critical communities that we need to reach, and really, staying focused on what we know are core issues for voters right now, and not getting distracted by the continued, lies and frankly just like extreme on extreme that we continue to see from Trump and Vance.
Yeah, and you touched on this, but something that's been really incredible, I think that your campaign has done really well, is this challenge of balancing, making sure that voters are so aware of the incredibly high stakes of this election and the consequences of it, and carrying the joy and the enthusiasm. And it's been really just incredible to have both, because both makes everything easier and more joyful to do the work that has to be done. And we only have 1 minute left, so I want to just kind of build on the closing strong theme and question Simon asked, and we'd be remiss, because as a lifelong organizer, not to ask you, what can folks do? What should they do who don't live in these battleground states? What would you ask them to do with these last really 5 weeks and change we have left?
Definitely. Well, folks can get involved, and really, whether it's doing phone banking from the comfort of your own home, or finding, offices or ways to be able to connect, they can go to kamalaharris.com to be able to get involved and to be able to sign up. But we do have a strong, distributed phone bank program. We also have canvases that we'll be launching from what we're calling our surge state program. So states like California and New York and Illinois into our battleground states. So there will be opportunities to, for those of you that love knocking on doors like I do, I know sometimes folks are like, canvassing really? And there's no better way to, learn about really or to get the pulse of the voters and the election than getting out to canvass. But, we have so many different opportunities. And also, as you mentioned, the joyful ones, just recently we had the opportunity to, have the vice president in conversation with Oprah Winfrey and so many of our, incredible grassroots leaders as well. And so, just really, there are so many different ways that folks can tap in, and, just hope that you all would, join our campaign today. We know that if we continue to work hard, work together, that we will continue to make history. And, in addition to there being so much at stake in this election, it is also an extremely historic one, and one that I know, kind of working together and working through your networks can continue to do together. So we look forward to having you all in the fight. And, as the vice president reminds us, when we fight, we win.
Julie, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
so much,
you all.
Julie.